I was 12 years old when my father pulled every secret of my heart out into the open. And it happened in a way, and never forget. Tell us where you're watching from. We'd truly love to know. And if there was a moment in this story that touched your soul, please share it with us in the comments. It would mean the world to us to hear your heart every afternoon. When I returned from school, I stopped in front of a small bookshop. The glass showcase was filled with wonders that seemed to glow under the fading sun. A punching machine, a geometry box, an eraser, an ink bottle, a wooden footscale, shining fountain pen, and pins of every color. They looked like treasures, yet they were treasures I could not touch, because I never had the money. Months passed, and still my feet returned to the same place. My eyes clung to those items, and my heart whispered to own them. At night, I dreamed of them, and in the morning, the hunger grew sharper. Then one afternoon, I slipped my hand into my father's pocket when he was resting, pulled out $50. My heart beat like a drum, yet my fingers held on. I ran to the shop, and my trembling voice asked for every single thing I had ever wanted. I carried them home stuffed in the deep pocket of my coat, along with $30 left over. That night, I lay beside my father on our shared bed, pretending to sleep. The weight of those objects pressed against me at the same time, sweet and terrifying. At 3 in the afternoon, my father returned from his office. He sat on the bed, leaned back, closed his eyes, and then his hand brushed against my pocket. Slowly he pulled out each item one by one and laid them in a row upon the blanket. The geometry box, the rubber, the ink, the footscale, the fountain pen, the pencils, the colored pins. He did not speak at first, and the silence cut me deeper than any words. Finally, he turned and asked, "Where did you get all this?" I froze. My lips would not move. He asked again, more firmly, "Did you steal from me again?" I could not hide anymore, and my voice broke as I whispered, "Yes." My father stared at me. His face was stone, but his eyes carried a storm. He said, "This is the third time. You are not changing. You cannot live in my house. I do not need a thief for a son." His words were a blade. I stood in shock. My small body shook as I stepped away. My heart screamed, yet my voice stayed trapped. He pointed to the door. "Leave now." I walked out into the street, and the world had never felt so cold. The sound of a siren echoed in the distance. The president of our country was visiting, and guards lined the road. When the motorcade passed, silence fell over everything. The world seemed empty, and I was a child cast out, standing in that silence. My feet carried me nowhere. My tears blurred the ground. I was alone, rejected, unloved, unwanted. But I still clung to the hope that maybe the storm was not the end. I wandered down the road, and the evening sun burned into my skin. While my thoughts tore me apart, my father's words kept striking me. "You cannot live in my house." The boy who only wished for a pen and a box of pins was now nothing but a thief. To the man he loved the most, the streets felt endless. The shadows of soldiers faded. The crowd dispersed after the president had left, and all that remained was me, a boy with $30 in his pocket and no place to belong. I sat on a broken stone near the roadside and watched dust rise with each passing cart. My throat was dry. My heart kept whispering, "Go back and beg for forgiveness." But fear pushed me down. I imagined my father turning his face away, imagined him closing the door, imagined myself sleeping alone under the open sky. Then I heard footsteps. A familiar voice broke the silence. It was my elder brother. His eyes carried both anger and worry. He said, "Father is calling you. He says if you promise not to steal again, he will forgive you." Looked at my brother in disbelief. "Forgive me? After what I had done? Could that be true?" My brother took my hand firmly and led me back toward our home. Each step shook me more than the last. When we entered the house, my father was waiting. His face was hard, but his eyes glistened with something I had never seen before. He asked only one question, "Will you promise never to steal again?" I nodded. With all the strength left in me, I spoke with the honesty of a soul torn open. "I will never steal again." My father looked at me long and deep. Then his voice softened. he said, I forgive you, but this is the last chance. If you lie or steal again, you will destroy yourself. I cried in silence, as his words settled in my heart. That night, I lay beside him again. But this time, the air felt different. There was a weight of truth between us, not the weight of stolen objects. My father did not speak much. He turned his face to the wall, but his forgiveness had already planted a seed inside me. The next morning, I carried all the things back to the shopkeeper and returned the money. The man looked at me puzzled, but accepted it without a word. I walked out with empty hands. Yet for the first time in months, I felt full. I was not carrying objects. I was carrying a promise. My father watched me quietly from the door, as if testing if my decision was real, and my chest rose with pride. For days, I kept replaying his words. I forgive you, but this is the last chance. And I realized forgiveness is heavier than punishment because it gives you the responsibility to honor it and to never break it. Time moved forward, yet that single day shaped the man I would become. I grew with the memory of standing in the streets abandoned and with the memory of being brought back by mercy. The two moments collided inside me, and from their clash was born honesty. As years passed, people in our neighborhood began to trust me. They gave me their valuables to hold. When they traveled, they left their small treasures in my care, because they believed in my word. They spoke of my honesty as if it was rare gold, and sometimes I wondered, did they know that the boy they trusted was once thrown out as a thief? That secret stayed locked in my heart, but it guided every action I made whenever I felt temptation to take something not mine. I remembered the cold silence of the street and the way my father had said, I do not need a thief's son in my house, and the way forgiveness burned deeper than any punishment I could have faced. But the story did not end there. One evening many years later, I sat with my father. He was older, his hair gray, his hands slower. He looked at me and said, you kept your promise. I trusted you once more, and you never broke it. And then his voice faltered. He whispered, I only forgave you that day because you told me the truth. If you had lied, I would have closed the door forever. His words struck me. I realized it was not only forgiveness that saved me, it was truth. Truth unlocked the door to mercy, and mercy gave me a chance at life. That revelation lived with me long after he was gone. When I buried him, I felt the weight of that moment return heavier than ever. The last theft of my childhood had become the first stone of my character, and the forgiveness of my father had become the foundation on which I built every choice. The world may see me as a man of honesty, but I know inside that I am only the boy who once trembled under the weight of stolen pens and pins, and was saved by love disguised as stern words and mercy disguised as warning. When people place their gold, their keys, their secrets in my care, I smile quietly, because they are not only trusting me, they are trusting the lesson my father carved into me with fire and forgiveness. And sometimes late at night, when silence covers the house, I hear his voice again, saying, I forgive you, but this is the last chance. And I whisper back into the darkness, Father, I never stole again, and I never will.